I'd love for you to touch on kind of the parental rescue. That's something we all in the field of selective mutism, you know, relate to. And it's interesting because parents don't realize how they do rescue. I don't do that. I don't do that. They either rescue or they push. It's the in between that we need to work with. And I talk about the selective mutism triangle a lot and how to bring kids into, or teens, and how to bring them into social communication, how to step back, front line, engaging, hand over table. There's so many different strategies. But I want to hear from you about the rescue in ARFID and how, this occurs. I've got a lot of things that I got from the reading I did, and it's amazing how similar it is in terms of SM too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of overlap. And I think a lot of it has to do with the broad theme of anxiety playing a role in all of these different concerns. With anxiety and anxiety disorders, parenting behaviors that are typically very kind, thoughtful, supportive behaviors are actually getting in the way. And so part of it is really learning as a parent, what are the ways that I am jumping in that is getting in the way of this kid learning that they can handle it themselves. They're learning how to work through it. They're learning how to face the fear, and they're learning how to sit through a hard moment. And for parents, it's often sitting with their own anxiety of, I feel like my child is suffering and I'm just standing on the sideline while they're suffering when I could do something to help them. But in the moment, if you're jumping in when a child is struggling with some of these anxiety concerns, that kid isn't learning how to work through it on their own. So they're not getting that experience, they're not getting that expertise, and they're also getting signaled to an extent that mom and dad don't believe I can do this. They think that this is not something I am capable of, or they're learning that if I don't want to do something, if I just wait it out long enough, or I cry hard enough, or I throw a big enough tantrum, maybe they'll come in and they'll make it stop so that they don't have to do things. So it's reinforcing behaviors that are not necessarily helpful or adaptive in that moment. And we want to think about what we're reinforcing, which is why I said, let's reward trying, because what we're trying to reinforce is that they can try things. They don't just have to say they can't, they can go towards things. And with anxiety too, often there's this danger signal that gets wildly out of control. And so if you're rescuing a kid, it's reinforcing, oh, this really was dangerous and I need to
Exactly.
be saved. It's not safe. Whereas we
Right.
want to learn, okay, I this is hard, this is gross, this is uncomfortable, but it's safe.
Right. And you gave some examples that I thought were really interesting, how parents, they don't want to cause distress, that we see that a lot, right? And they might provide separate meals. So they're the child that eats different meals at the table, or they only go to the restaurant that child is comfortable at. They make the food, like you said, special, and they accommodate all that, only reinforcing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's hard when it comes to nutrition and calories because if somebody is medically underweight, you want to get food in there no matter what. And so that can lead to a lot more accommodating because you're trying to just get food in a child's body. But sometimes we'll start off with, okay, let's eat 3 meals a day and build hunger cues and eat snacks and then just increase the volume of the foods that are preferred to get more food in there. And then we're going to introduce foods that you don't like and just have them on the plate and normalize that they're there. And then we'll practice touching it over time and smelling it and putting it in your mouth and just stepwise building off of that, but reducing the accommodation of we need to have totally separate food, especially if a kid's not medically compromised. We're going to practice eating what's prepared. And while it can feel really hard, letting a kid build up hunger to then go towards the non preferred food can be very helpful. And so removing access to preferred foods can really help a kid want to go towards a non preferred food because if they can get chips, they're just going to eat that and then they won't be
Yeah.
hungry for dinner. And that's not true for every kid with ARFID, but that's one way of noticing how am I maybe feeding into this and not helping them have the motivation to go towards things that they would otherwise not want to go towards.
And you were talking about like keeping them hungry, like not giving them in the in between. So they may be more motivated to try something. I thought that was interesting as well.